All right, everyone, it's time to start the event. There's still plenty of good seats here in front, so just be brave and come here. Or if you don't want to, hopefully you can hear me back there in the back seat as well. But let's start. Good afternoon on my behalf once again, and welcome to this event on world-class omnichannel product experience that is brought to you by Vaimo and our partners Akeneo, Cloudinary and Frends. And today we will be discussing product experience within the digital commerce landscape and what makes it truly world-class. My name is Nemanja and I will be working as some kind of a host here for you today, so expect to see me once in a while on the stage. In addition to myself, we will be seeing Marko, Vaimo's Business Development Director, shortly after me. Then Kenneth from Akeneo will be jumping on the stage as well, Tom from Cloudinary, and Asmo from Frends. If you take a look at the agenda, you can see that we have a full schedule of informative and engaging presentations for you. We'll start with Marko, who will be telling us a bit about the composability in the PXM domain. After that, Akeneo and Kenneth will talk about the economic impact of a great product experience. Then we'll take a short break just to get some more drinks and food. And then continue with Tom jumping on stage and telling us why it's important to consider media when going down the composable route. And finally, Asmo for Frends will be jumping on the stage to present on composable e-commerce from concept to adoption. After the presentation, we'll have a short Q&A session where hopefully many of you will have a lot of tough questions for our presenters today. I'll help you a bit. I also have a few tough questions on my own, but feel free to ask questions, and many of them. And then after the Q&A, we'll still have around 1 hour, maybe a bit more of time to just mingle and network and continue having some drinks and food. But before we actually kick off with the presentations, I just want to set the scene for today's topic a little bit. So as you can see on the slide, the product experience is not only a buzzword. In fact, it's a very critical factor that can make or break a business in today's digital commerce landscape. So let me walk you through some of the key statistics that you see here. First, did you know that 66% of consumers say that they would abandon a purchase due to a poor product experience? That's quite a staggering number, I'd say. It means that no matter how great your marketing or pricing strategies are, if your product experience falls short, you could be losing out on potential sales. But on the flip side, 50% of consumers would be willing to pay a premium for a better product experience. That's right, they're willing to shell out more money if they can get accurate and more engaging product information. And that's not all. 50% of the companies say that they can charge more for the same product when the product experience is of higher quality. And for B2B companies, it gets even better. 56% say that they can increase sales conversions by creating a compelling product experience. So there you have it. I think we all know why we are here today. And it's enough from me. I think it's time for actual presenters to jump on the stage. So without further ado, Marko, please join me here. Now, we've done a few of these before, or actually one of these before. And before I forgot to press a button. Here we see a nice slide of yourself and you get the clicker. But I usually have one tough question before we actually start, just to get you warmed up. So I know that you've been nervous all day what I'm going to ask you.
And yesterday.
This time. And yesterday you probably didn't sleep at all. But I thought that this time I'd be quite easy. And I'm just going to ask one thing. You ready?
Shoot. Do I have a choice?
Not really, not really. All right. The question is, are you ready?
Sure.
Good. No further questions from me this time. So
Really? I'm surprised.
Feel free to start.
Usually it's something food related, what you ask me on this stage, but...
This time I went easy.
Okay, let's skip it this time. Okay, so my name is Marko Rykkänen, been at Vaimo for almost 11 years in different roles. I'm nowadays Business Development Director for Vaimo Nordic, so focusing on new revenue streams and new solution areas. And today I will be walking you through a 12 to 15 minute introduction before I hand over to Kenneth, who will dive a bit deeper into details. Really shortly about us as a company. So we are a full-service digital experience partner, and we mainly operate within 4 different areas related to it. So we are expert in all things e-commerce. So we build standalone sites to B2B global programs. Secondly, we work with content management, so we empower companies to deliver engaging brand and content experiences. And thirdly, we work with data management, meaning that we help customers to design and implement systems like CDP, PIM, and DAM. And fourthly, insights and activation, we also guide our customers to make sense of and act on data. And as a full service integrator, we offer consulting, design, development, support, and analytics services in all of these 4 areas. We are global enough to support our clients with international presence, but yet local enough to understand the terrain of each market. So we are present in about 15 markets and closer to 700 employees globally. And in Finland, we are about 70 people, offices here in Helsinki, Jyväskylä, and Oulu. Okay, let's get started. So shortly about composable commerce and composable architectures in general. So I would say composable started popping up more about 2 years ago internationally, and in Finland actually only last year. And we see that it is currently really interesting for many companies, and many companies are about to start or already have recently started their journey into the composable world. And even though it is a technology trend, but it is not only that, because typically when you are switching to this sort of a model and approach, it cannot be justified only with IT-related advantages and reasons, but also equally you should evaluate the business drivers and goals as well. So it's not only a technical exercise, nor you should just evaluate a feature list that which components do you need to implement X and Y. It is equally important also to evaluate the strategic business fit and how it fits your specific organization and its needs. So due to the all hype and trendiness, of course, there's a risk that someone might think that this is a good approach for everyone and not evaluate the fit to their own organization at the necessary level. Let's come back to that in a bit. I would also like to point out that partly as a part of the whole composable transition, these are the areas where we see the strongest movement in the market towards the desire to increasingly centralize data to single sources of truths, so that we can also better able to avoid duplicate data and also streamline the operations and workflows accordingly, empowered by these modern systems, and also to integrate the data to the surrounding systems easily using modern APIs. And I hope you are already aware that today we will be focusing on the top two domains and solutions. And it's quite typical that among these solutions, more often than not, many companies also choose the first solutions where they start the overall transformation towards the composable architectures. If we then look a bit deeper into the composability in the product experience domain, many companies have using a platform and many times multiple platforms to store product data and digital assets. E-commerce store as an example. It is quite common that you enrich the data in the e-commerce platform because that data doesn't really live anywhere else, nor in ERP, nor in any other system. And there's no single source of truth for that data. So it means that the same enrichment is done also in other platforms and channels. So instead of doing all that in all of those platforms, in the composable architectures, there are agnostic services for different purposes. So for product data and digital assets, there is or are central repositories for data, which everyone uses. And also what is good to emphasize at this stage is that you do not have to explode everything into composable architectures and components, microservices at once. It is possible and many times preferable to do it incrementally in phases. And looking at composable from a slightly different angle, this is so-called page layered view, which, for instance, Gartner uses in their reports quite often. In my opinion, it quite nicely also illustrates how different types of components are categorized into different layers, and each layer has certain role and nature connected to it. So again, looking at this from product experience point of view, if a company has a PIM and a DAM system in place, those are the central repositories for data. And as said, they get quite often some minimal basic data like SKU name from an ERP or other system, but the enrichment are or is done in the PIM and or DAM system for the sales and marketing channels and purposes. These systems typically also have powerful workflows and role management capabilities, making sure that the processes are improved and making sure that the right people are doing the right things at the right time. So with a setup like this, we also aim to improve the operational efficiency and also decrease the time to market, and many times also improve the satisfaction levels for the teams who are working with product data and digital assets. And then from the central one source of truth onwards, it's much more efficient to pass the data to the topmost systems of innovation layer and especially ramp up new customer touchpoints and channels. And from integration point of view, more and more companies are implementing or have recently implemented modern iPaaS solutions such as Frends to orchestrate the integrations and also to mask the complexity in the systems of record layer. And it's quite often that when an iterative transformation to composable world starts, that the old legacy / on-premise world and the modern cloud solutions might clash to some extent. But that can be also mitigated to some extent with proper solutions which can connect the older legacy systems and more modern solutions. Again, coming back to the earlier comparison view, and let us look how it is also different to work with different setups for the teams. So from development point of view, with a platform-based architecture, there's usually one team working on a platform across all the functionalities within it. So when something is changed, for instance, related to products or digital assets, the whole solution should be tested. Even though it creates clear accountability and good overview for the system, it also means that there are dependencies between different entities. So there are some drawbacks. Then from a user and operations point of view, there are many teams accessing the same system, meaning that individuals from product management, marketing, customer service might all use the same platform and be exposed to all the features within the same platform. With a composable architecture, you can divide members into multiple teams and work with multiple partners with a clear separation of responsibilities for each domain. So what it means in practice is that when you reach a certain size, this sort of architecture and approach will let you have more people working on your overall solution at the same time, which also means increased speed and faster time to market, especially for new functionalities and services per domain. And it also enables the teams to be more autonomous, meaning that they are really outcome driven for product or assets domain. They can be cross-functional, true domain experts, and they can be rightly sized for each stream and domain, and they are less or minimally dependent on other streams. If you have looked into composable commerce before, you might have heard about Mac Alliance. The Alliance aims to educate and support the industry as a whole on what to look out for when moving from legacy infrastructure and going composable. And MAC refers to an industry tech standard, and it stems from M, microservices, A, API first, C, cloud native, and H, headless. The next presenters will dive a bit deeper into this, what this actually means in different domains. Before we wrap up the intro, let me summarize a few key takeaways. So if we think about the basic areas where composability, PIM and DAM can add value, there are quite a few. So where centralized one source of truth can help you to improve time to value in these areas, customer/product experience and operational efficiency. Of course, the weight of importance for these different areas vary per company, but in general, the more SKUs, the more channels, locales, language versions, and people working with product data and digital assets you have, the more benefits by default there is to take. And if you are seeing yourself already now struggling with these topics and areas, imagine if you scale any of those previously mentioned components. It doesn't get usually easier when scaling up. Next speaker, Kenneth, will dive into details and elaborate through examples why it really makes sense to invest into great product experience and what's the economic impact to it. So that having said, product experience nowadays is truly critical to customer experience and scaling business. And as composable commerce in general, also product experience requires the right technology, but it won't be achieved without the processes and strategies to align the tech to the outcomes. And it's the PXM champion category of companies who have already upfront invested money and energy to become the PXM champions, and they are reaping the rewards from this exercise what they are doing, empowered by the modern PIM and DAM solutions. Second takeaway, and my final point from this introduction is that I want to emphasize that you do not have to explode everything at once into composable setup. As I mentioned, it is possible and preferable to do it incrementally. Run proof of concept to test also what it actually means in practice, and also compose the services where it is justified. Not everything has to be composed in the microservices. For instance, if your current e-commerce platform is not slowing your business down, and that's something for now you can live with, but instead, the things which I mentioned in the previous slide are something you are struggling with each and every day, and people are doing duplicate work, the product data is all over the place, you cannot really optimize the product experience in different channels. That's where you should start from. Start composing product information and digital assets to their own services and form that one source of truth, without exploding the whole architecture at once. And then it helps you to also open up and integrate new sales and marketing channels where product data and digital assets are essential. But that's all from my side as an introduction. So next speaker.
Thank you, Marco. Let's give a round of applause for a great start to the event. And next up, Kenneth, please join me on stage, and you will be talking us a bit on the economic impact of great product experiences. Before that, though, no worries, no food-related questions this time to you either, but just one question. What do you hope that after you have done with your presentation, what's the one key takeaway that the audience should take away?
I mean, hoping it's something related to the topic I'm going to talk about with. But I mean, I'm happy if product experience, if that's something you understand fully, then I'm happy with what I've done today.
Sounds good.
Excellent. So, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenneth Lindstedt. I work at Akeneo or Akeneo. You never know. for those of you who don't know, Akeneo is we do PIM, we do product information management, and we believe obviously that product experience is a huge part, and that's like has a big effect on everything, on consumer behavior, on revenue and growth and so on. That's what I'm going to talk to you about today. The topic is the economic impact of great product experience, but I want to start with the kind of basics, because this is still a question or a topic, a discussion I'm fairly often involved in. So we talk about PIM, product information management, product information. Then we talk about product experiences, and I'm today going to talk about product experience strategy. So just to start with the basics on what's what. So this this here is a product. You can probably all agree. It's a product from one of our customers, Puma, one of their shoes, and it's also technically product information. This is how Puma presents this single product through some of their sales channels. So it's quality product information, similar product information, brand values, high quality images, and specifically it's tailored to each channel. So you have your social media channels, you have lifestyle imagery over there, which makes sense. They have their main e-commerce site. Puma is present on marketplaces or third-party sites. The difference here is that it's very important to then include the brand name, because it's not a store they own. And they make sure that their resellers, ASOS in this case, that they also have access to the same information. So when you are looking for Puma shoes, doesn't really matter where you end up, where you are, you will experience a similar product experience from Puma. And that's what we call product experience strategy. So making sure that this happens. How you bring the product record to life consistently across all owned and unowned channels and markets, which of course aids discoverability. People will find your product, improves customer experience, and through that accelerate growth. And to give another example of kind of what it takes to get into product experience strategy, this is well, it's based now on Puma pictures, as you can see, but it's like a typical setup, a typical siloed setup where I bet many companies are familiar with this. So you have different teams, different units working with your product information. You might have a social, someone who's head of social media. You might have a social media team. They produce images and material for your social media channels. So probably something like a lifestyle image or something with your brand values and so on. Then you most likely have an e-commerce site, a team or someone responsible for that. They also produce material. They probably show all the product information because they're in-house, or they have access to it most likely. They probably show different, if you have sustainability or some environment or recycling badges and certificates, this is probably visible here. Then you might have marketplaces or third-party places where you sell your products, and someone else is in charge of this, and they necessarily don't have access to the same stuff that the e-com teams have. So what you end up in on the marketplaces might be just a part of what you actually show, what kind of product information you show on your own e-commerce site. And finally, if you might have resellers, again, there might be someone else in charge of delivering product information to these resellers. And depending on what the method is, if it's an Excel, I'm pretty sure they will not get the same product information on for the resellers as you have on your own e-commerce site. And this is pretty much it. I mean, this is the thing is that this material mostly you usually always have it. It's already around. It's just sitting with different teams or different silos or different areas, and that's what product experience strategy is all about. So just making sure all this is done in one place. So basically the parts considering or part of product experience strategy is managing every piece of the product record. So this is the product hub. This is the PIM, the software. So all the different social teams and whoever is involved in creating material or handling material, they'll work in this tool. Orchestrate and configure. So building up the channels, making sure you tailor your product information. So depending on where it goes, it should have it should look different. Activate and optimize. So that's then connecting to all the channels. So previously Marco spoke about having multiple channels. You need to reach your audience is in many different places. So being sure that you can reach them and you can constantly reach them. It's not a one-time upload. You can refresh and change the data or product information you have. And finally, as importantly, analyze and act. So this is something that keeps on going. You get feedback. It's conversion rates, time to market, whatever you want to measure. You constantly get feedback and then you optimize. So this is like a living thing that you keep on improving. So that's product experience strategy. Then I hope product experience, product information, product experience strategy is now somewhat clear. Then the second part, so why is this important? So the economic impact of great product experience. I want to start with the Forrester's view on this. So first of all, I'm pretty confident most agree that customer experience is a key strategy for most or probably all companies. It has a direct effect to revenue growth. I mean, you do a bad customer experience, you will not have a very good, it won't be successful. If you have a good, it can probably aid in growth and so on. So customer experience is important. But Forrester found in a study, this is in 2020, that product, or they say in this study, that product experience has the biggest impact on customer experience, right? And it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because when you as a consumer or when you want to buy something from a company, it most likely starts at the product. So that's where you first go. That's what you're looking at. That's what you're figuring out what you need. And from there, then if you continue with the company, yes, there's other factors in customer experience, but it very often starts with the product. So product experience is a key part of customer experience. We at Akeneo, we do these consumer studies or B2C studies yearly. The numbers that were shown earlier today in the opening, those I believe were from the Akeneo studies. I have with me some numbers as well. I want to show you what it looks like now. So we just got the numbers from 2023. So I'm sorry, my results will be a bit different. We will officially, I think, release it this week or something. Then you will find it on our website if you want more. But I have a few examples on what we found. First, I'm going to show you this. A bit of a simplified, but I think this is very easy and simple to understand, the kind of how product information affects conversion rate. So this is again from Forrester, and it's a study they did between 2014 and 18, and it shows, well, pretty clearly, the more information you have, low-res images, switching to high-res images and so on, how it affects your conversion rate. And this is, I think, pretty simple to agree with. You don't have trying to buy a product and you don't have you only have one low-res image and nothing else. Pretty much no one will buy that. And then, sorry, to our own study, which I previously mentioned. This is a global study aimed at B2C, and we are asking consumers questions and getting them to give us their opinion. And these are some of the results we found now with the 2023 survey. First of all, we asked where there's let's just go to the results. 84% of the consumers said that they do product research online before buying offline, which I think sounds reasonable. 77% have browsed products in store but purchase online. So this is something we've been here for a long time, or for many years, and it's still going on. So whether you buy something that you usually buy in store, like a car, or something you buy online, you still go through both the physical store and online to look at the product or find out more information from the product. This second one is new now for 2023, and it's or we might have had it in the previous one, but it's definitely up from last year. So 66% of consumers said that they now spend more time validating purchases, requiring more information before making a purchase. So it just means that they want to be more sure before you make a purchase decision. I think this probably reflects to how the world is these days. But it's good to know that it just requires, they want more data, more details. They want to be sure of what it is before they buy it. 8 in 10 consumers have given up on making a significant purchase after having spent time researching it, if there has been missing product information. So this is pretty interesting as well. If you know what you're kind of looking for, you research it. But if you can't find the information you want at the site where you then thought you're going to buy it, you don't buy it. The main reasons why someone didn't buy something was missing pricing information and or lack of availability. So this is definitely information, product information that should be present, should be visible. Then something that reflects the Forrester studies on how it affects customer experience and how that affects growth. So in our survey, 62% would purchase another product due to bad product information. I think this has changed now from the number we saw previously today, but it's still a significant part, and it needs, you kind of need to understand what it means. So it's, if I'm looking at, I want a specific product from a specific brand and I find it somewhere, but the product information on this site, the easy e-commerce site, it only gives so much information. Then there's a similar product from another brand which has full-on product information. 62% would just switch then and buy the other one. Over 63% of consumers said they would lose trust and cease buying a brand following a bad product information experience. Also pretty easy to, I think, relate to, especially to lose trust. So if you are looking for something, you find it, but the product information you get from this specific brand with this product and other products they offer, it's constantly bad. You kind of lose, you don't trust that brand anymore, and then you don't buy anything from the brand. But then the other side of this, so as Forrester said, good PX has also positive effects. 41% of all consumers are ready to pay more when offered a good product experience and brand value. So again, I think this is a bit down from last year, but still 41% is pretty big, pretty good. And it's again important to understand what it means. So if I have two separate sites selling the exact same item, one is cheaper, but their product description is short, they have only 2 pictures. One sells the same item, but for a higher price. They have good product information, good images. 41% would choose to pay more for the same product because they trust that site more, they trust the information more. And then finally, 2/3 of consumers said they would become loyal customers if a brand and retailer offered a more engaging shopping experience. This is pretty cool. I think this was the first we did for the studies about asking about loyal customers. But loyal customers is something most companies want, and this just goes to show that if you offer enough product information, create an engaging experience, people want to become loyal customers. So I hope we agree, product experience drives customer experience, which drives growth. Then I have this kind of a nice slide for you. This is a very busy, horrible slide, and I don't expect you to read through this and or really, well, remember it. Or that's maybe the point of the slide. But the idea here is that showing you there's a lot of things where product experience has an effect, where you can do something with the product information management, like a PIM with a PIM and product experience. And we've kind of created this showing the PX levers, so kind of the effect that product experience has, how you measure this, speed to market, traffic conversion, high value, cost to add product, what the value it brings. Is it adding new products, selling more valuable, creating data more efficiently? And then the business goal, profitable sales or cost efficiency. And end result, as said, is always or pretty much always profit, like some sort of growth. And again, the point is not to go through all of this, it's just to show that the product experience or PX levers, as we call them, it has an effect on a lot of things. And to simplify this a bit with a few examples, if we look at, it's easier to read, by the way, probably from this way. So if you have a business goal of profitable sales, like selling more, a value driver, so what we're going to do is add new products, and we want to sell more of our products. Then how would you measure this with new products? Speed to market, net incremental sales. Volume up is obviously, well, traffic, conversion rate, and then getting rid of returns. And then finally, the PX levers. So how product, a PIM and a product experience can help running these business goals. And I have a few examples of some of our customers, kind of what their business goals were and what they did achieve with Akeneo. So this is Grundfos. They were looking to expand their catalog, drive growth through that. That was like their business goal. And they were able to double the catalog from 20,000 items in 8 countries to 40,000 in 25 countries in only half a year. That's pretty good. 10 times reduction in product enrichment resources. So obviously when you get a lot more efficient, you don't need as many people, and you can instead, like, you keep the team, but you can manage 3 times as much or 2 times as many products as you could before. But also better quality data when you have a good process, and which often leads to increase in sales. And well, with all of this, they got a positive ROI in 3 months. Another one is Meyer. This is a department store chain in APAC, and they want to sell more, kind of as the business case. So their growth happened through the supplier data. So they said they get their products from a lot of places. So they were able to, with the PIM, they were able to set standards for the supplier data. They were able to get the suppliers to create data for them, give data for them, and just with this, improve the data quality a lot. And then they achieved with the system 4 times faster time to market, which with better product quality combined meant a 34% increase in their online sales. Another side of this, which is I think these days also very relevant, or at least I got to do talk a lot about this side of it, is the cost efficiency side. So a few examples again from how a PIM and a PX affects this. So your value drivers could be create data efficiently or deploy data efficiently. How would you measure it, and the PX sides. And I'll rather than go through this in detail, I'll show you a few examples of what we've a few customers do. So Jaguar Land Rover, their goal was to basically just handle data more efficiently. They are very much a global brand, and with the Akeneo or with their PIM, they were able to unify how they work in their 32 markets. So able to make the ways of working the same in all their global markets where they are. And with this, because it looks the same, they work the same way. They improved online customer experience and reduced time to market. Another one is Staples, fairly familiar brand. So they launched a new e-com platform together with Akeneo, so there's other things involved here as well. But the result is quite interesting. Staples used to have a time to market for 24 hours, and they got it down to 15 minutes instead. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is there's a lot where product experience and PIM has an effect, but it needs to be it should be in line with your business goals. So don't kind of think of what a PIM can do for you. Think of what your business goals are, what your pains are, and then, well, come and talk to us. That's a better way of looking at it. This is it for me.
Thank you, Kenneth, for an insightful presentation. Let's give it a round of applause. And we will be seeing more of Kenneth and Marco as well later in the QA section. But next up, we're going to take a 10 minutes break. So we're continuing at around 16:15 55, so take some more refreshments, some more food, and after the break we will continue with Cloudinary and Tom here on stage. So let's take a 10-minute break, everyone. All right, it's time to continue. We have 2 more presenters left, so if you can resume your places and let's get started. So Tom, you're up next. Before that, just a quick reminder to everyone. All of these materials that you are seeing will be delivered to you after the event as well. So you will get these and you can then also go through yourself and so forth. But Tom, before I let you go with your topic, just a few things actually. I heard it's your birthday today. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
Congratulations,
yes.
Right?
Yes, pleasure to be here as well. It's lovely to be in Helsinki, so thank you.
Exactly. But one question to you as well. So I happen to know that you will be leaving after your speak. You need to catch a flight back home.
Yes.
But your colleague Dominic is going to jump during the Q&A session instead of your place.
Yes.
So my question to you is, what would you like the audience to ask from Dominic when he's on the stage here after your presentation?
Ask him how old he thinks I am today.
All right. But Tom, are you ready?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. It's a pleasure. Today, I just want to take 15-20 minutes to cover a couple of things. First is why is media important in an e-commerce stack, in a composable world? Why is it important? Why is it often seen as difficult, complex? We'll expel some of those myths today. We'll also talk a little bit about how Cloudinary is helping certain customers, and then how we're playing in the composable arena as well. So it's really kind of Akeneo to stand up earlier and show a case study using Puma, because oddly enough, we both work on Puma together. And that's a joint customer that we have where we're working in a composable architecture. So it's a really good example of the kind of things that we're talking about and the kind of ROIs that were talked about earlier. The business outcomes are a lot of the things that we're jointly driving, but in a slightly different arena. So we are focused very much on media. So for the next couple of slides, I just want to highlight the real importance of media. First and foremost, visual assets have a really big impact on being able to sell your products. Studies have found that having at least 1 photo on a product listing doubles the conversion rate. Having 2 doubles it again. Having much more high quality, more powerful imagery on a listing page increases the number of visits and the more likely that the product will be purchased. So it's really important. Second of all, there was a paper done recently, a couple of years ago, consumer psychology behind the e-commerce checkout. So for 90% of buyers, product visuals are the most important factor when making a purchasing decision online. You know, we've all shopped online. We all know we love looking at the pictures of what we're going to buy. Offering multiple photos, showing the product from different views, different angles, leads to a 58% increase in sales, regardless of the category. So the more you can do, the more 360, the more next generation media, the more video, things like that, the more chance you have of increasing conversion rates, selling more product. And according to a joint survey by Square and BigCommerce, 78% of customers want more product photos, but more engaging media when they shop online. Now that's complex, but we'll talk about how we can overcome that in a little while. And as I said, you know, things become complex, things become more complicated, especially when you throw in the likes of video. So a lot of organizations that we talk to at the moment say the number one thing we want to do more of is video. The reason we don't do it is because it's complex, it's time consuming, it costs a lot of money to do. And we need to find a way of kind of dispelling that myth a little bit, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the reason it's important is because 89% of buyers are convinced to make a purchase after watching a video. 87% of brands say that video marketing has helped them increase their sales. Consumers across all age groups, you know, young and old, are expecting a minimum of 6 photos and 2 videos per product listing page at the moment. 2 years ago, they looked across the top 10% of products sold on Amazon, and barely any of them reached that point. More and more are reaching that point because they realize it's important. And not only are they doing video, as I said before, they're looking at spins, 360s, AR, anything that can really engage and help increase sales. On the flip side, Southsify have recently done a consumer study last year and reported that missing or low quality images on a product page results in a 30% no purchase decision. So high quality, the more media that you can do, the better it is. In a survey of sellers, Etsy found that 40% of them found photography really difficult and creating media really difficult and managing it through its life cycle really difficult. Even though they know it improves and it helps them sell more product, they still struggle to do it and still struggle to find a business case. Another study found that low quality UGC, so user-generated content, reduces both the trust in the brand and impacts sales. So these are the types of things that you really want to get right. 76% of consumers said they purchased a product or service after watching a video. So let's do more of that. Let's see how we can kind of help you do more of that. So at Cloudinary, we really understand that media is important. We like to help our customers understand that media is important. And we realize that managing high volumes, extremely high volumes, scaling media, required to deliver really capsulating video experiences to everyone, everywhere, is humanly impossible. But you look at the process today, and it includes a lot of humans. So let's see, how can we help that? How can Cloudinary help that? Where does Cloudinary play? We do a lot of AI. We do a lot of machine learning. We play from the moment a piece of content is created to the moment it's delivered in an omnichannel digital experience. Typically, some of the things that we see in that is in an organization, big e-commerce players, typically they will be getting content from lots of different places, maybe coming from agencies, maybe coming from photo shoots, video shoots. And that is if you're not a marketplace. If you're a marketplace, then you're getting it from the brands. You're getting it in lots of different formats, in lots of different ways. You've got content flying at you. Could be coming in on email, could be coming in on Slack, could be coming in via an FTP, could be coming in Dropbox. Lots and lots of different methods. That's inefficient. It's difficult to manage. It means you lose media. So one of the things that we do is we like to give you one single window to bring content into the organization. Try and streamline that process. Have one pipe bringing things into the organization, making it easy to manage. The moment that it comes into an organization, when you have it coming in lots of different ways, one of the biggest problems, and I think you mentioned it earlier, Vaimo, you mentioned it earlier, single source of truth. Single source of truth for your media. We walk into organizations, you see technology islands all over the place. They may store stuff in AWS. They may be on a Google Drive somewhere. They may be on somebody's laptop who's just about to leave, and all of that media gets lost. Typically, those are the types of things that we see. What you want, and what the Mac architecture gives you, it's cloud native. You want to use a cloud-based system. You want to give everyone access within the organization to a single source of truth for all of that media. And that's one of the things that we're able to do, is give you just a single source of truth. And what you don't want is a complex file system to kind of navigate. What you'd like is Google search functionality around the media that sits within that piece of, sits within that single source of truth. So one of the things that we're able to do is make that search, browse and retrieve process a lot better. Because within that single source of truth, you'll have lots of users. It may be a marketing person, it may be a designer, it may be an agency, a third party, it may be somebody in technology, needs access to that media. Searching media, we often see in organizations where they're typically technology islands, they'll spend 15, 20 minutes looking for a piece of media. They can't find it, they'll email somebody and ask them where it is. And unless somebody knows where it is, they've lost half a day. They've lost another half a day when that person comes back and says, oh, I've forgotten where it is. So then they have to go re-request that material again. So they go back to the source. They go back to when it was created. They re-request that. Typically, you've lost another day, another couple of days. Inefficient process. What we do is, when that content comes in via that single stream, run it through AI. Visually, AI goes and looks at what is in that video, what is in that piece of media, what is in that imagery. Run it through. Create metadata, create tags associated with that piece of media. It will make it 10 times easier to search, browse, and retrieve that in the future. You're selling cars, you know you've got that red car somewhere. You search red car, you want to find the red cars that you're looking for. Those types of things. Make it easy to search, browse, and retrieve for anyone in the organization. Frictionless, make it much more effective. Some great ROI studies around making content more searchable, because lots of people have access to it. And if it's taking on average half an hour to find something, that's very inefficient when that's 30 people over the course of a week. So make it easy. Enrich that data with metadata. The next part of the process, you've got your piece of metadata, you've got your piece of media. That is your single master asset. But we know in an omnichannel world, you're actually having to deliver that single master asset in lots of different formats. So you may want to crop it. You may want to add and remove a background if you're delivering out to, let's say, Amazon or other marketplaces. You may want to put image overlays, text overlays, those types of things. Typically, we'll see today, those are done in a Photoshop environment by a human, somebody who went to graphic design school for 3 years, 4 years, studied really hard. What do they not want to do? They don't want to take an image and do that and do that. They want to be doing high-end design. Free them up to be able to do that. Automate that process, again, using AI, cropping, auto-cropping techniques, adding, removing backgrounds is something where you can really drill out manual, mundane tasks, replace them with automation. The next element is you want to create those different renditions. You don't want to store them. You don't want 50 pictures of the same image stored in lots of different crops. So don't. Create those on the fly, ready for your omnichannel delivery. Then to create a compelling front-end experience, user experience, you want to optimize and deliver in the best possible format. And that's where we come in as well. So we get the highest possible image quality, but the lowest possible weight. Google Core Web Vitals started looking at things like speed, load times, those types of things on imagery, video on home pages. You want to have high quality, but you want it to be at the lowest possible bit rate. And that's where we come into our own. We work with Google, we create and looking at the next generation formats and all of those things for any media that needs to be delivered. And then you use multi-CDN technology, so you have network resilience to be able to deliver that to the end user. And that then creates a compelling end-to-end media supply chain, media life cycle, end-to-end. So as soon as it's created out to delivery, as quick as possible. Nike, our biggest customer, started working with us 7 years ago. It's fair to say they had to plan about 30 days in advance before a product launch, that media life cycle. We've taken that down from 30 days to a matter of hours. Tesla, another great example. Dom, we were talking to them at our SKO. 21 hours it used to take to get through that life cycle of a content being created onto their website. We've got that down to 20 minutes. Real improvements, really driving cost out of organizations. Everyone knows where the economy is today, those savings becoming really important, then also increasing conversions on the front end as well. Save money, make money. Couple of good examples. So in terms of growth, where we're able to help, Paul Smith is a really good example here. They saw a 45% boost in video-enabled sales. So we're delivering video for them. They found it hard. Now they're able to deliver more video than they know what to do with now, and that's had a real commercial impact and return on investment, significant revenue growth, and better conversions for them. Some great data around that. Operational ROI, you mentioned it earlier, efficiencies. Efficiency is very common for customers like River Island here that we've just started working with. River Island on their Mac journey, I'll talk about that a bit in a minute. But they're really taking advantage of our automation everywhere to free up teams from repetitive tasks that they were doing before. Other customers who have kind of got much more agility through a composable architecture, for example, here, we've got Rafa, which is behind me, which you probably can't see. But for Rafa, we've moved them from a legacy technology to a Mac tech stack, enabling faster, more agile management of images and videos for them. I think Cloudinary, as an end-to-end platform, replaced about 8 technologies in Rafa in one go, made them much more efficient, many less organizations to kind of manage and overhead in terms of operational managing of contracts. Additionally, like everyone in our space in the industry at the moment, I'm sure, Akeneo, I think you're no different. We've worked with Forrester recently on total economic impact. And actually, Forrester found that through that study, talking to a handful of our 10,000 customers globally, implementing our solutions has realized a 203% return on investment in less than a 6-month payback time. So you can really generate some cost savings and some revenue generation here that's adding to a compelling reason to make investments in these technologies. Modern architecture. We've kind of covered it a little bit in the slides before. Mac's really important to us. As an organization, we're about 11 years old now. We've got 3 co-founders. Those co-founders were developers at heart. They wanted to build an open architecture platform. that was developer first. We've got over 1.5 million developers that use our platform. It's easy, it's developer first, makes it easy to integrate other solutions into it. It's highly scalable. We use cloud-based technologies, which means you can throw as much media as you like into the platform and it will deliver. It's flexible. One of the main, I think, criticisms from marketing people, certainly when you walk into an organization that work with big monolith, old technology stacks is, well, I really want to do 360 spins, but do you know what? I can't. My technology platform doesn't allow me to be able to do it. You want a technology platform that allows you to experiment. You don't know whether they're going to improve conversions. We can tell you, you can look at all the data and it says it absolutely will, but what better proof point have you got as a marketing person to say, guys in IT, I've got 10 products here, I want 360s, let's see whether that's going to have an impact on conversion rates and measure that, experiment with those things that you want to do, easily integrate into the rest of your tech stack. You'll see in a second on the next slide, we've got tons of integrations, we're no different, we work with everyone in the industry, we realize we're the media layer, but there are other elements that you really need to be able to plug into, and that gives you a best of breed tech stack. So just quickly here, obviously an extensive set of partners that we work with within the ecosystem that allows you to pick and choose, almost like a, sort of a menu type scenario when you walk into a Chinese, pick what you want, pick what you need, bring it all together. So again, great example here. Solution partners, we're working with Vaimo in this region, really great. Akeneo, you've heard of before, CMS platforms, commerce solutions. It's very common that we'll see organizations kind of taking a step approach, which way you go first, whether you address a PIM, whether you address your media problems, whether you address the CMS, whether you address the commerce. This is where I would talk to someone like Vaimo. They've got the experience. You may want to do those things at once. You need the resources to be able to do that. That's what this kind of architecture, these kind of partnerships, these kind of engagements will be able to give you. Last slide. A couple of customer examples here from us. Well, obviously, we've spoken about Puma previously. Another good example is Mattel. So they're a content stack and Cloudinary integration partnership there. We worked together on that project to deliver a new CMS and a media platform. Nintendo has integrated Cloudinary with Contentful using pre-built integrations. Minted has used Commerce Tools and Cloudinary for all of its transformations, 3D rendering. River Island, I mentioned them earlier, has just started their composable journey. They're working with Cloudinary first, plans to integrate a headless CMS and commerce solution in the near future, as part of their kind of deliberate, one step at a time approach to a composable architecture, delivering cost savings, adding value on the front end. And Lululemon, we're working with Commerce Tools and ourselves again to deliver an end-to-end solution. And that's me. Any questions? Make sure they're really tough ones. If Dom can't answer it, he owes you 10 euros.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Let's give a round of applause to Tom as well. Thank you for a great presentation. We wish you a safe flight back, and once again, happy birthday. And next up, Asmo from Frends, our final presenter of today. Asmo, one question to you as well. So you're a seasoned professional in this field, let's call it like that. Has there been anything new to you so far in the presentations before, or is it kind of
I think so, and actually, I really loved the presentation about product experience and coming from a developer of a SaaS solution, and especially in the B2B field. As an integration platform like Frends is, I think there are lots of learnings that we can take from basically, I think, all areas of product experience and bring that into, I guess, even B2B world. And I think that's really something that is, I think, opened my eyes even a little bit and gave me some ideas of my own. So I really enjoyed that, and it was a cool experience to watch that.
Great, good to hear. But stage is yours.
Brilliant, thank you. So, hello everyone. My name is Asmo Urpilainen. I'm the Chief Product Officer for Frends, which is of course an integration platform as a service. We're a Finnish company going global as it is, and of course, partnered up with Vaimo a couple of years ago, and we've had some pretty cool cases so far. Today, I want to be talking about, well, the title is Composable Architecture from Concept to Adaption, but basically my presentation is all about how do we now take basically what we've heard from Akeneo, Cloudinary, and all of these great, I guess, initiatives concerning, for example, product experience and customer experience, and practically take those systems into use and basically implement composable architectural principles without falling into some of the pitfalls that might await us along the way. And basically, I think I want to start off with this sort of a integration approach to composable architecture. And I guess this is something that should be quite, I'd say, obvious so far for all the listeners that in essence, from an integration point of view, being composable is a decision to be uncoupled. And what do we mean by being uncoupled? We mean that the ideology is that rather than have that one single centralized, let's say, e-com platform where everything is in, we use basically those best-of-breed services with technologies with excellent connectivity. And of course, we know that from the presentations that both Cloudinary and Akeneo are such services with excellent connectivity, but that usually is not enough to get all of the benefits out from a composable architecture, because what happens when you connect these excellent services and systems, such as Akeneo and Cloudinary, to your other services? So, for example, your legacy ERP or your legacy CRM system, and what is the end result in that sort of a situation? And this is, I think, one of the key messages that we want to bring out to our customers, and I think we see a lot of customers struggling with this, that they, for example, want to take a new PIM solution into use, and they might have implemented that, but then they end up in a situation that there actually are huge problems down the line because you don't have a strategy when it comes to the integrating of these systems. And we call this problem something, or we're calling this problem integration spaghetti. And the problem with the integration spaghetti, and you can see the sad face there on the title, is that basically, and I've taken this sort of an e-commerce platform example of this sort of a point-to-point integration spaghetti nightmare, where the idea is that you basically just connect the systems to one another in every which way. So you might use, let's say, a tool here to do, let's say, your connection from your PIM to your ERP system. Then you might have another connection from, let's say, your PIM to the CRM system for some sort of use cases. Perhaps the e-com platform is connected to our ERP using a third technology or fourth technology, and so on and so on and so on. But the problem with this sort of an approach without having a strategy when it comes to integrations is that this basically prevents you from having that single source of truth approach, which has been talked about by other presenters today, because you can of course imagine a situation that if your PIM is supposed to be your single source of truth, and you've integrated it to your other systems in various different ways, and of course the PIM might be dependent on some data that's coming from the ERP, any change in the PIM, it's basically practically impossible to see and track how that change is now actually propagating through your whole IT and system landscape. And actually this is something that, well, we've referred to. I think every presentation has had either Gartner or Forrester referred to today. But I think in 2020, Gartner posted an interesting line there that it has actually analyzed that over half of like general IT budget goes to the maintenance of this nightmare in basically on average on any and every company. But of course, our ideology, go composable instead. So solve this integration nightmare problem whilst enabling composable architecture. And the way you do that is, like Marco mentioned on the first presentation, is using a modern integration platform solution, such as Frends, to actually isolate the different pieces of the composable architecture. So for example, the PIM or your media and asset management systems or CRM, ERP, microservices, whatever. The key ideology is that you want to use an iPaaS or an integration platform to isolate the connectivity of those systems from one another, thus reducing and of course removing the problem on the previous slide, that if you have a change here on the PIM system, you can actually see and track what's happening with that information, where is it going, and of course, at the same time, implement those mock principles. So have that single source of truth available, and of course, on the next slide, I have a practical example of this. But now I'd say the key takeaway from this slide should be that if you use a modern iPaaS solution such as Frends, you could, of course, now, I've drawn e-commerce platform there, but leveraging the previous presentations, of course, you can put in here, let's say, your partners, or you could put in your marketplaces. You could have your, I don't know, e-commerce platform combined with your mobile app if you're using something like that. And that basically enables you to have that single source of truth. So the integration platform gathers all of the information, all of the raw data that you have from those different building blocks of the composable architecture and ideology, combines them and presents them in that single channel, that single source of truth, all the while, of course, enabling you to have that governance and monitoring in place. And to kind of maybe illustrate this further, I've actually taken a little bit of a screenshot of Frends. Actually, let's skip over to that slide. I think it's sorry, in a little bit of a different order than I intended. This is actually a screenshot of an actual integration in Frends, and this is just to give you a practical example of what are we talking about. And this is, of course, well, the use case here is a quite simple one. So we are basically checking how much of a product do we have in stock, both at our centralized warehouse and at our stores, which are part of a point of sales network that we're using to sell that platform or product in the first place. And the key takeaway or ideology with Frends in particular is that you use this sort of an understandable process-based approach to describe the composability of those solutions you're actually building. So the word composition actually fits excellently into this approach and ideology that we want to bring to, of course, all of our customers, is that everything should be understandable, and even though this is a technical picture, so it's from the platform and product directly, I think everyone is able to understand quite quickly what's actually going on here within this particular integration. And of course, the whole point of being composable is being able to control in which order do you actually, for example, retrieve those product counts. Do you do things simultaneously? Do you do things, let's say, in sequence? And you have that control over the composability or orchestration of those best-of-breed services, such as, for example, Akeneo or Cloudinary. And how do you combine those to enable that headless omnichannel single source of truth that then all of your, of course, consumers, be they web shops, partners, marketplaces, consume. And in this case, just a couple of, I guess, highlights I wanted to bring here in a sense is, of course, the understandability, which is really a key when it comes to these sort of modern iPaaS solutions which want to enable composability. Because like Marco said, this is not purely about technology, even though technology is an important part of it. It's also a business initiative, meaning that you need something like this to be able to discuss with the business of the customer to show them that this is how we are planning basically to enable that composability and bring that into reality and bridge that gap between having code which does this and having basically it presented in a layer that's understandable to the business in the first place as well. And maybe just in a couple of slides or lines here, I wanted to go over the kind of mock architecture ideology, which has been, of course, I think part of every presentation here today as well. When it comes to microservices, I think this is a really key component of the mock architecture in many cases, and I think that's why they have chosen to put it as the first letter of the mock there. And what we basically bring to the table in terms of microservices is a whole bunch of ready-made microservices. So we've built over 300 plus microservices, or you can even call them mini services in some scenarios or situations. And the basic ideology there is that those microservices such as getting the product stock from the central warehouse are basically available for you from the get-go, meaning that you don't actually have to develop the functionality on how to get that product stock out. Or, for example, you don't have to develop that connector that we can use to, for example, go to Akeneo and get that product data out. But we've basically done that for you, and what's left up for the customer is the business logic and the orchestration, the composability of that solution as we went through there. A second thing we wanted to go through is the API-first approach. So as you saw on the process, the approach that we kind of enforce for the user to have this process-based approach basically forces you to develop solutions using these API-first principles, and the end result of the solution is almost always an API that is then consumed by one or more channels by the customer solutions or channels that actually use those APIs. Cloud native should be, I think, kind of a given. So of course we are a fully cloud native solution, but I think headless is something that we haven't maybe today talked about enough from my point of view. So maybe I'll spend a little while explaining what the ideology behind headless actually is. So if we think about the kind of headless in a sense, I don't know if that's not something that actually anyone explained so far, but the headless API ideology is that what we want to provide for the e-commerce platform, or let's say for that web shop or marketplace that's selling your product or platform, is the raw data itself that has no other dependency than the data itself. And that's really a key differentiator, I think, a difference from a traditional approach where your data sits within some sort of a system, and that's actually requires you to have some sort of a user interface to interact with that data. So the headless ideology is basically focusing on what's important, so combining the data from the different systems and actually working with the raw data itself, meaning that it's actually then compatible with whatever channel, whatever solution you want to use that data with, rather than having to basically be forced down a certain type of a rabbit hole or a pipeline there. And of course, I think here on my last slide, what I really wanted to maybe highlight here quickly are, of course, some of the capabilities of the platform. So I think we kind of covered the ideology of having that visual low-code development approach where you create something that's understandable for the business. You, of course, use those ready-made connectors to actually build that composition of the services and APIs you want to provide. But really, really important, API management, B2B management. So now if you think that you want to have this sort of a single source of truth approach where you, let's say, combine your product stock information with media, with product information from, for example, Akeneo, you need to be able to ensure and see who is using that data and for what purpose, and you need to be able to, for example, enforce certain types of rules on that data. And basically what we want to do is provide all of these tools for the customer so that you can really start building rather than having to establish certain principles around, let's say, testing or documentation. And our, of course, customer cases, which I don't have unfortunately on the slides here, usually end up in a situation that the, let's say, first solution can be done within a matter of days rather than weeks or months in many cases. So as a final point here, so what does a composable integration architecture mean? So it's like a subset of the composable architecture in general. We remove the direct connections between the systems that can lead us to this spaghetti integration nightmare or spaghetti architecture nightmare. We want to enable using older systems, so the existing systems that the customer has, as the source of the data that we are providing through the APIs that we are building. So That means that there was some talk about here that we should use an incremental approach, and oftentimes we hear this from our customers saying that, hey, I want to try out this super cool new PIM system, for example. I went to this webinar or seminar, and they really sold it on me. But now my, for example, IT department says that that's absolutely in no way possible because our ERP cannot connect to the PIM system whatsoever. One of the key points in the composable integration architecture is to enable that interconnectivity between older and newer systems, as discussed previously. One key takeaway is, of course, to have this ideology that you want to be able to build those business-level APIs and microservices that combine the old and new systems. And one of the key benefits there is that oftentimes, when we're talking about that single source of truth, the sad reality is that single source of truth is actually quite rarely kind of something that the customer can say with a wholehearted that we are actually have in place. So usually there might be a situation that, for example, customer information is spread all over the place. So the single source of truth might apply for PIM systems, but for other sorts of or other points of data, the data is usually split wherever it might be. And of course, with an integration platform like Frends, what we want to be able to do is make that multi-system, I would say, landscape in those situations act as the single source of truth. So get towards a composable architecture, even if you haven't been able to do that in the past. Lastly, but not least, I'll open up the three last bullets here. So one of the key, I'd say, takeaways also from this composable integration architecture point of view is also to prolong the life cycle of those older systems that you have. So we've seen cases that where a customer, let's say, is forced to do, or the customer thinks that they're forced to do an ERP replacement project before they can start reaping the benefits of a composable architecture, or let's say an improved product experience in the first place. Using an iPaaS such as Frends, like mentioned before, is also a way to buy time for you to do those replacement projects later, because the iPaaS can kind of cheat the system in a little bit, so make that older system appear to be composable when in reality it probably might not be, and then you can of course later down the line look at the replacement of that solution or system in the first place. And of course, the last point that I really want to kind of nail down here is the key idea that we want to be able to build APIs to serve every channel and need, not just the web shop or, let's say, a single use case, because the composable architecture ideologies, or the MAC principles, and especially the headless ideology, means that we want to be building those APIs, those solutions, to support multiple use cases. And that's really what enables that single source of truth. Because if you have 5 different APIs that serve similar data, you really don't have control over that data. And being able to focus that single source of truth, that single channel where we are providing that data to the consumers, is what it's basically all about. And of course, yeah, reusability everywhere. Or the idea being that those APIs are of course then reusable everywhere, meaning outside of e-commerce as well. So there might be, let's say, just reporting needs that your company has. So you want to be able to see different sorts of data about those products. The APIs can of course do that as well. But all right, I think that was my show for now.
Thank you, Asma, for a very engaging presentation, and once again, a round of applause is in place. And next up is my favorite part of the event, where we get to ask questions from the presenters. So Marco, Kenneth, can you join us up here, and Dominic as well. So let's ask you some tough questions, guys. We also, I believe we have a mic over there for the audience. So if anyone, and hopefully many of you do have questions, we will have a mic here to give to you so that everybody can hear what you're asking. But let's start. Does anyone already from the audience have a question, perhaps, to ask our presenters today?
Or Nemo.
Don't ask me. Or you can, but I won't guarantee an answer. Maybe I can start to warm up a bit. Marco, let's start with you, because you tried something just a second ago. So you discussed about the product experience domain within the omnichannel and composable. So can you win in the omnichannel race if you do not go composable?
Good question. So, of course you can. And as we have heard today, there are different companies who have different opportunities in the composable world. However, I think all of us, we have seen quite a few companies who have maybe become a bit too comfortable with their current status in the market, and they have underestimated the pace of change and how fast their competitors can go. So, dependless if you go composable or not, we would for sure encourage everyone to really future-proof your business architecture and also technical architecture if it really enables you to go fast and adjust when and wherever needed going forward. So yes, but make sure to future-proof your business and technical architecture for future changes, which are eventual.
Right, then I have one question for Kenneth, actually, regarding the product information management. How should the businesses start evaluating the need and suitability of starting using a PIM in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, what I tried to go through in my presentation was, I think I put it like, product experience strategy should be the same as your business goals or business objectives, but I mean, I guess it's the other way around. So whatever your business goals and objectives are, what the pains are not to achieve them, if that's product information PIM related, then like that's, I think, a good place to start. But it definitely should be something that's aligned with where you want to be. What do you want to achieve? A bit of a big answer, but in the area of product information.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Kenneth. Dominic, related to digital asset and media management, what difference does rich media really make to a customer?
I thought I'd escaped having to answer a question, but I haven't. What difference does it make? A lot of it's been touched on, interestingly, by all three vendors here today. It's about conversion and engagement and expectation. So generational changes are the thing that's driven that level of expectation now. I have a 19-year-old daughter. She's bored within 30 seconds if she hasn't got what she wants online. Our patience has dropped. Our level of tolerance has dropped. We know from the research that we've done and the data that we see in the industry that the more engaging media, the more rich media you have, and Tom whizzed through a lot of stuff fairly quickly, but he talked about things like 360. Mm-hmm. You know, be able to rotate a product, take a look at it from all angles. That level of engagement, plus video, biggest growth area for us right now, is driving significant change in the way people procure. But the problem is here we're in a market where everyone's competing. So if one person does it and the other doesn't, then that can significantly impact their conversion rate. So there's a lot of follow through at the moment we're seeing in the industry around the use of more advanced rich media. We're now getting into things like augmented reality as well. So that's the next big thing. Some of the big furniture brands now are doing some very cool stuff where you can put a piece of furniture in your living room, see what it looks like, have the dog walk past it. It's very, very engaging, and it makes a massive difference. So that's probably the biggest change.
Thanks, Dominic. Aspo, one for you as well. You briefly touched upon this just when you were finishing up, but I have a scenario for you. So yeah. I go back to my day-to-day job in my company, and I tell my IT, oh, composable, I want to go that way, I want to have PIM and DAM, and then they say to me, our systems do not work in composable commerce. What can I tell them?
Yeah, well, you can tell them not to worry and be in contact with Vaimo. they have you covered. But basically, I think then it all boils down to what I was talking about briefly previously, that using an integration solution like an iPaaS can really basically cheat the system a little bit. So make those older systems, those incompatible systems, like your IT said, work as if they were more modern. And trust me, I think we will have an answer for every question that they might have, such as there will be a performance hit, it's a security risk, we can't allow connectivity to the cloud through our firewalls. All of these things are, and of course a multitude of more, all of these things are something that can be solved and basically have industry best practices already in place. So you don't really have to kind of worry that the point of getting started with Composable is too high. You can literally just choose and say that, hey, we'll take, let's say, Akeneo now into use, and it will require these connections. Well, we can arrange those for you, and of course within a reasonable cost frame as well.
Sounds good, sounds good. At this point, before I run out of my questions, any questions from the audience to help me a bit grill our presenters?
Thanks. I thought it was interesting to juxtapose some of your presentations against one another. When it comes to productivity within the systems, you, Marco, spoke about how you can get more efficiency out of teams if they are working in a composable architecture where you can not all of the team is working in the same system at the same time doing lots of different things. Rather, they can kind of find their niche, work on that, and you can get a bit more efficiency out of the teams working on it. But then the other presentation, you were saying, well, you can actually prolong the lifetime of some of your legacy systems by using the integrations in a smart way. You don't have to go composable straight away. So my question with this long preface is that what's the tipping point? Where do you see that when will companies be forced to kind of go composable? Where do you kind of hit the ceiling and you have to break through it by going composable?
Excellent question.
I can start and feel free to chip in. So coming back to my earlier comments, compose the services where it's feasible, where it is slowing you down. It's not either or, that either you go all in to composable world or you stay with the non-composable world. So as an example, if you are struggling with PIM, that product information, that it's all over the place, there are no processes, no single source of truth, then we can see the value there. But if an e-commerce store is a component, a stream with which you can live, you can stick to it and prolong its lifetime with solutions like iPaaS. Then you are more feasible and it's more reasonable to start with another component, being a PIM in this example. So compose where it's feasible, where the current architecture is slowing you down, where you cannot meet your business goals.
And I would maybe chip in on that by saying that prolonging the life of an already dead system is never a good idea, and that should be fairly obvious to everyone, but that should not be preventing you from reaping the benefits as we were talking about, or let's say when it comes to implementing a new PIM system like Marco said. So what we want to be doing is remove obstacles so that then you can get to where you're going, get to those business benefits without basically ending up in a dead end.
And I'll just add something to it, because you mentioned the word tipping point. I was really interested in that. So from an industry perspective, we saw that COVID had a significant impact on the behavior of our customers towards their customers. So predictability was the key thing. Those in a very predictable environment, people are happy to stay with a legacy system because the cost of change, the time of change is irrelevant. The environment's stable. As soon as we got into a difficult economic climate and the situation that COVID caused, we saw a lot more of our customers starting to get very worried about not being in a situation where they had an architecture that could be switched and changed to meet the needs of the customer. And that was a real tipping point. It was that unpredictability of the economy that we saw.
Great. Was that a good answer?
Very good answers.
Maybe one more example, like Akeneo has really good data, even industry-specific KPIs, measurements. Looking at those sort of reports, you potentially can identify that, okay, we are not meeting the industry benchmarks when it comes to time to market, or well, time to market is maybe the best and the most common example, that if you are lacking and you are behind the industry benchmarks, then you can start asking questions that, okay, what is the reason? Is it the architecture which is slowing us down? Don't we have good enough processes? Don't we have refined roles who can actually deliver that time to market benchmark timing for that specific KPI and for your company?
Thanks, Marco, Asmo, Dominic. Any other questions? I believe we had one at least in the back row over there.
Yeah, hi, thanks for the presentations. I was wondering if you have any statistics or any insights about the rich product information, rich media, AR, whatnot, in B2B setting, especially in a heavy industry where the product might not be so sexy and it might be a bit more difficult to create this kind of engaging content.
Yeah, I can. I'll have a stab at that. B2B is not as big for us as B2C for obvious reasons, as you'd expect. Having said that, we've seen a significant shift in probably the last 12 to 18 months in terms of how B2B businesses approach the needs of their customers. And that's been driven from their customer end. So they're being pushed to provide much more content. It's often, a lot of customers come to us, and it's not really our strength, quite frankly, but they come to us and say, can you couple together technical documents together with the product information, together with the product images, together with the video, but actually bring everything together in one space so that their customers can have a much easier navigation experience, per se, when they're working with them. What we are starting to see more recently is a lot of the stuff that I just hinted at a little bit, the augmented reality stuff, the 3D content. Where in a B2B environment, when the customer, essentially the other business, is taking a look at a new product that's just been launched, they want to circulate that internally for education purposes. And having video content and 3D models is much more inspiring than a part number and a picture. So we're seeing that being driven really sort of from their customer end.
Yeah, I can continue on that. So I mean, we are pretty. I mean, we are B2C, we are B2B, we are B2B to B2C, whatever all the combinations are. But I was thinking about the question statistics and product information, or the enrichment of product information. Or maybe in the B2B, they tend to measure more things like time to market, or like how you're reaching the channels where you need to be, those sort of things. We do have a Forrester report around how Akeneo changed the life of 4 of our example customers. It has some details, but it's not done on the same level as with the B2C. Even though I do agree fully here that it's definitely going toward the same end. Like the target is definitely B2B wants to be like B2C because it's expected.
Yeah.
So there are some statistics, but not. I don't think they're measured really on the same level.
All right, thanks very much.
Any further questions from the audience? If not, I think we can then once again give a round of applause for our presenters today. Thank you. I hope that you all found this event informative, engaging, and this is not the end, so let's continue with mingling, networking. There's more drinks, more food over there, and let's continue having discussions between yourselves, with us, and let's continue engaging. Thank you once again, and thank you as well, and let's have a great rest of the evening. Thanks.